Hello and welcome to this episode of the Barracuda Robot Build Diary. In this episode I will talk about the steps I took to get the robot inside the 5.44 kilograms weight limit and any other part of the physical build to get the robot ready for competition later in the year. This includes my new link holder design, which I may use in other robots. So now I'll take you through the pictures in the build log. So, picking up off the last video, the weight saving starts on the wheels. The wheels were made out of 6mm HDPE, therefore there was actually a lot of weight to be saved. In the end they kind of took on a sunbeam shape, as the outside ring of the wheels has the most volume. I feel this leaves the wheels maybe a little bit vulnerable to attack, but I think it's a fair trade-off. The next part of the weight saving on the wheels was to take away as much metal as possible. So that's the screws and the metal washers. The metal washers are replaced with a HDPE spacer, and the screws I cut down to size. I left some screw length here, as I didn't want the rotor to be stuck on the side of the wheels when in the arena. The next weight saving measure here is to reduce the thickness of the front top panels. Luckily I didn't have to go through the HDPE bend process again, as the thinner HDPE is more flexible. Also in this picture you can see I've cut down the weapon mount part of the robot a bit further. So after all this was done, the robot weighed 5.52 kilograms. This is almost 300 grams less weight than before, so big progress is made here. However, it's still without the link holder and the rear armour panel. This is a new link holder design for this robot. It's all made out of HDPE pieces, with M4 screws holding it together. The XT90 connector sits in the middle, with cable tie wrap holding it in place. The link itself is then easy to attach and remove from the robot. In this picture we have the latest link holder, with a long HDPE piece bent 90 degrees with a heat gun, which attaches to both sides of the cut-back weapon assembly. The motor mount side uses M5 screws, and the other side uses M4 screws. As you can see here with the link holder, the weapon assembly looks a lot more complete now. So with the link holder attached and minor cutbacks to the chassis, the weight of the robot is now 5.55 kilograms. As you can see here, I've cut more around the edge of the chassis so that more of the gearbox is showing, and I've also trimmed down the back panels of the robot. So at this point really I had no choice but to replace the metal washers in the weapon assembly with plastic ones. This actually took a total of 70 grams out of the robot, which is not much, but it helps a lot, as I only had to lose another 100 to 200 grams. And then the last major weight saving here is to cut holes in the back top panel of the robot. And also you can see I've cut more material out of the aluminium motor mount. And this one shows the back panel with all the holes cut out. If you compare this to the early build diary pictures, there's a lot less material now than when I started. So all that was left now at this point was to use duct tape, heat shrink and cable ties to make sure none of the routing of the cables clashed with the brushless motor. I also reduced the length of some of the cables here to further save weight. So once I was happy that the cables had all been properly routed, then I reassembled the robot for another weigh-in. So now I've ended up with 5.445 kilograms. That's close enough to the weight limit that they will accept that in competition. A few grams over the weight limit is perfectly acceptable, and if I need to I can always cut a little bit more out. So as you can see here, this is the robot complete. I've got the classic small banana to scale, and also the scale of gun blade to compare against. So that about wraps up this episode. This is now the finished first iteration of Barracuda. I was actually surprised by how quickly the build came together. This is by far the fastest build of a robot I've ever done. This is also my first time properly CADing a robot up in full. There are lots of new and interesting challenges for this build as well, which only increases my experience in robot building. Thinking ahead to the next iteration of the robot build, I think there's a good few opportunities to reduce the chassis size further and therefore thicken up the armour where it's needed. So I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.